this guy's garage. Like and subscribe.
Questions and questions orales, oral questions. The honourable member, the honourable government official opposition whip.
In an act of political cowardice, the NDP and Liberals ignored 70% of Canadians and 7 out of 10 premiers last night, showing Canadians they don't care. They've abandoned the people they were elected to serve by voting to increase the carbon tax by 23% on April 1st. They're forcing families to pay higher prices for gas, groceries, and home heating. This at a time when food banks are shattering records. After 8 years, the Prime Minister isn't worth the cost. If the carbon tax is so popular, why won't he call a carbon tax election so Canadians can decide for themselves?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Environment and Climate Change and the Minister of Sport and Physical Activity.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Canada Carbon Rebate is possible because we put a price on pollution, and that's what's driving down the emissions in Canada, Madam Speaker. Carbon pricing is working in Canada. It is driving down our emissions, and we're doing that while sending more money back to 8 out of 10 Canadian families with the Canada Carbon Rebate, Madam Speaker. But the Conservatives want to ruin the rebate. They don't want any money to go back to Canadian families. It's very clear who they work for. It's not Canadians. It's big oil and gas. Conservative hypocrisy at its finest, Madam Speaker.
Honourable Official Opposition whip.
Well, this government is flailing, and their climate record is failing. In BC, the federally mandated carbon tax will raise $9 billion over 3 years and credit back only $3.5 billion. I know that NDP Liberal math is hard to understand, but that is a $5.5 billion net cost to British Columbians. 70% of Canadians and 7 out of 10 premiers agree. When will the Prime Minister finally admit his carbon tax is just like him, not worth the cost, and let Canadians vote to axe the tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I find it shameful that the Conservatives continue to use the affordability crisis and Canadians who are experiencing difficulty financially at home as a wedge against climate policy, Madam Speaker. There simply is not one economist in Canada who has claimed or suggested that pricing carbon is what's driving inflation. In fact, Madam Speaker, over the last couple of years, as the price of pollution has gone up, so have the rebates, and inflation has come down. That's a negative relationship, Madam Speaker. The Canada Carbon Rebate is sending more money back to 8 out of 10 Canadian families. We're addressing climate change and the affordability crisis.
The Honourable Official Opposition whip.
Madam Speaker, what is shameful is that last year alone, this government paid consultants $21 billion, and now the RCMP is investigating them all again. Conservatives voted non-confidence and called for a carbon tax election so that British Columbians could axe the tax. The NDP leader and his member from South Okanagan, West Kootenay, voted to hike the carbon tax and keep this Prime Minister. Over 200,000 people in BC are using the food bank every month. Families are struggling, and the NDP leader and his 12 BC members are all hell-bent on hiking the tax. If he's so confident...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Interesting that while Conservatives pretend to care about Canadians, we are actually working to implement legislation and procedures to bring down prices like food, grocery prices, internet fees. And Madam Speaker, all while we're working hard for Canadians, you know what conservative lobbyists are doing? They're creating fake, secret lobbying companies to lobby the government while hiding from Canadians that it's the same chief advisors. And what did they lobby for, Madam Speaker? Higher internet costs. The Conservatives should come clean about who they're standing up.
The Honourable Member Yorkton Melville.
Thank you, Speaker. This NDP Liberal government voted to increase the carbon tax by 23%, making the cost of groceries, gas and home heating even more expensive. This Prime Minister is not worth the cost, as he will raise the carbon tax to $2,618 in Saskatchewan. Why are they ignoring 70% of Canadians and 7 of our best premiers who want to axe the tax?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, once again, Conservatives stand in this place and talk about affordability measures. Meanwhile, their own chief lobbyists for for the Leader of the Official Opposition is also lobbying on behalf of big grocers to not sign our Code of Conduct, Madam Speaker. We are working every day to bring in affordability measures to Canadians. While Conservatives talk a good talk, behind the scenes, they're there to help their wealthy, connected insider friends.